So good morning, good afternoon and good evening to everybody joining us. My name is Judy Kay and I'm facilitating this session, and I can see some very familiar faces popping up on the screen. There's Harriet from Simon Fraser, a lot of Canadians coming in. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. A beautiful morning in Melbourne, Australia, and hopefully where you are in the rest of the world. So, for those still coming in, I just want to reiterate that we would love you to put your institution and your name in the chat function so that we can see where you're from. Welcome to WACE Global Conversations. This is part of a series that WACE is putting on to bring together the WIL community across the world. It's great to see so many of you joining us. We've got over 200 people registered, and we're expecting perhaps up to 100 people or more from all over the world. So, welcome to WACE Global Conversations. WACE is the international professional organisation dedicated to work integrated learning, to the expansion and advocacy of work integrated learning globally. My name is Judy Kay. I'm on the Executive Committee of WACE, and I work at RMIT in Melbourne, Australia. Today, we have employers joining us from across the world to talk about COVID-19 and its impact on their organisation and work integrated learning. So before we start, just a little housekeeping. We've got you all on mute. We don't normally want to mute people, but in the interest of trying to manage any interference, we've got you on mute. We're hoping to have a Q&A at the session, so please add your questions into the chat function as we proceed. Dr. Nora McRae from the University of Waterloo will be managing the chat for us. She's got the wonderful WACE sign as her background, showing off her impeccable technology skills. We'll also be recording this session, making it available on the WACE website, so you can share it with colleagues or you can look at it later. At any stage, if we lose bandwidth or transmission of some kind, we have some sort of interference or we freeze, my suggestion is that you turn your video off, or if that fails, go out and rejoin using the same link. Before we commence our panel, I'd like to do an acknowledgement of country. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which I am meeting you is the traditional lands of the Wurrung and Burrung language groups of the East Kulin Nations, and I respectfully acknowledge their ancestors past and present. I also would like to acknowledge that as we come together today, while we're staying very far apart, we may be gathering on other traditional lands from around the world. I'd also like to acknowledge the enduring presence and deep traditional knowledge, laws and philosophies of the Indigenous peoples of whom we all share these lands. Thank you. So let's move on to the panel. So today the topic is Global Perspective, Strategies and Impacts, Work Integrated Education. And because I'm Australian, I will call it work integrated learning. So I will give you that forewarning straight away. And COVID-19. So we're living in unprecedented times globally, I think all of us. It's had huge impacts and disruption on every facet of our life, and significant impacts on tertiary education right across the world, with rapid change, disruption to work integrated learning in my country, and I know in many of yours, where students who undertake placements or cooperative education work terms have either had to move online or remote, or in some cases had them deferred. In the Australian context, and perhaps in yours, we're seeing innovation and change in response to this disruption. And we're all wondering what the world of work is evolving to, and how work integrated learning will play a role moving forward. Is it going to be back to normal, or is this the opportunity to reset and rethink what we're doing? In everything that we do, employers are absolutely critical. they're key partners in the learning that we can achieve with our students through work integrated learning, and it's that focus that we have today. Today, we're very lucky. We had 3 speakers, but because we're agile, we've added a 4th. So you're very lucky. We've got 4 fabulous employers joining us from very diverse industry sectors. So we have Rachel Metals in Western Australia. We have Dr. Ralph Brigham, who's the Global Director of Campus Relations, Southwest Advantage, USA. We have Lynn Pham, Talent Acquisition Manager from Total in Vietnam. And we have Jeff Ollinger, Senior Manager, Campus Recruitment from the Royal Bank of Canada. So welcome to our employers. We're really keen to hear your perspectives on what's been happening and what you think the future might hold from either your organisation or your country. We're very keen to hear. So let's start. We'll start first maybe by asking each of our panellists to tell us a little bit about their organisation and how it engages with work integrated learning or work integrated education. We might start with you, Ralph, in the USA. Ralph, can you tell us, can you start please, unmute yourself and...
Be happy to, and good whatever time of day it is for you all. I'm with Southwestern Advantage, and it's the oldest direct selling company in the United States, starting back in 1868. And each year we recruit about 1,500 college students from across the US and several countries in Europe, even stretching as far east as Kazakhstan. And we're one of 20 companies in our Southwestern family of companies that include real estate, travel, insurance, financial services, and many more. And the students that we recruit are involved in a leadership and a sales development program.
Right, let's go to Lynn. Lynn, in Vietnam.
Hi everyone, good morning from Vietnam. It's 7 a.m. in Vietnam from here. So I'm actually the talent acquisition manager from Total Vietnam. And I mean, of course, every year we're also recruiting a lot of fresh graduate students, as well as alumni students who graduate master and further study. And we are in the oil and energy industry. It's been around for 100 years, a French group. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. Let's move on now to Jeff from the Royal Bank of Canada. Jeff, are you there somewhere? Oh, where's Jeff gone? I think Jeff, is Jeff dropped out? Maybe Jeff's dropped out for a moment. Rachel, are you there from Fortescue Metals in Perth, Australia?
Yes, I am. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Rachel Proud. I work for Fortescue Metals Group, which is an iron ore mining company in Western Australia. Our engagement with WIL is we run a vocation student program every Australian summer, December, over 3 months. So we have an undergrad program and we actively recruit graduates across the mining disciplines, but also finance, data science, legal, IT, the other disciplines.
Thanks, Rachel. I'll just check whether we can see, can we see Jeff at all? Jeff, are you there? Okay, Jeff was having some technical issues before, so perhaps we'll move on and hope he can join us. So Ralph, let's move to the next question, which is around the impact COVID-19 has had on your company and how it engages with WIL and any strategies that your company has used to manage this situation. Ralph, over to you.
Be glad to, Judy. You know, in early part of March, we were having planning a company-wide meeting in New Orleans that was all of our recruiters. And less than a week before that, things were not looking so good. And so we decided that we needed to make a change. But one of the things that I think was really important that we did early on is we got together with all of our companies and we set some ground rules as how we were going to react as a family of companies. And some of the ground rules that we started with were that we want to put the health and safety of our team members first. We didn't want to overreact, but we wanted to respond to real-time situations. We also wanted to plan for an uncertain future. We needed to increase training and support. We were going to innovate and look for new opportunities. And maybe most important was to remain calm and have no fear. Have no fear in this age. Well, it was 2 days later when we decided that we needed to make the decision to cancel the in-person meeting in New Orleans, and in less than 72 hours had put together an entirely virtual training session for all of our recruiters. And that was pretty interesting because we always were used to face-to-face. So, you know, everybody was learning how to use Zoom, how to put PowerPoints onto Zoom, how to be adept at sharing screens, making sure presentations could be interactive, all of those things that lots of us somewhat are still struggling with. Well, that virtual meeting went very well. And it was about that time that campuses started closing here in the United States. And we discovered that, well, not only were we going to have meetings virtually, we were going to have to begin our recruiting virtually as well. So that was a new set of skills for our recruiters to learn, is, you know, how to use Zoom to attract the students. And they adapted pretty quickly to that. And in fact, as they were putting that together for the information sessions on campuses, we actually found that we had a higher percentage of students showing up for those information sessions when we did them virtually than when we were doing them in person on campus before. So that was a good thing that I think we learned out of that. And we're still learning about that. And so we've continued with all of the acquiring of names, the information sessions, the interviewing, the training of our people, and actually even some virtual selling then this summer. So I think what we did was we put 2 to 3 years of evolutionary recruiting changes into just 2 or 3 months. And actually it's working pretty well.
Fascinating. Thank you, Ralph. Maybe we'll go to Lynn to find out what the impacts have been on her company in Vietnam.
So in Vietnam, I think everything started quite early compared to the rest of the world. So we have the official national lockdown at the end of March. And in fact, before the national lockdown, Total actually already practiced on the teleworking and flexible working hour. People start to divide it into team A and team B so that we have alternate team working in the office. And of course, I mean, it is definitely game changing, the whole things, from our trainings normally to recruiting to operations, because we do have plans in Vietnam as well. So it's not just office worker, but there are labor workers who will be impacted. But of course, oil and energy is a kind of a commodity. It's kind of a very important. It's still, we are allowed to open as usual, but of course, we really follow the guideline of the government. So what have we done, and we changed quite quickly. Everything's moved online, everything go digital. We have town hall on Teams, we have training on Teams. We even have a lot of like bonding sessions and let's say Total reader clubs online. So it's not just the offline reading club anymore, so everything go online. And for recruitment as well, I mean, I could not believe that, I mean, throughout this whole things, actually we have strengthened partnership with some institution now in Vietnam, especially RMIT. We've done quite a lot of sessions with RMIT in Vietnam throughout the national lockdown, including the recruitment day. We have done personal edge and of course some panel session as well. And we definitely strengthened that. We have a lot of interest come out from the recruitment weeks, even though everything was online, but the session was very interactive, and I found that it's super helpful. We are able to actually recruit someone from that as well, and of course, all of the recruitment was done virtually because we could not meet. So it's actually a very a very interesting process that we've been through. And what I'm going to say is there's nothing going to be back to like 100% normal. We are coping with the new normal now in Vietnam, even though Vietnam is nearly COVID-free. But now employees from our company are really comfortable using Teams and online. And I think that is the way to go, even for the future.
Thank you, Lynn. I can see that Jeff has rejoined us. Jeff, would you like to introduce yourself and then talk about how your company is engaged with WIL and what strategies and innovations you've introduced? You'll have to unmute. Can you unmute? Great.
Hi, how is that?
Good.
You can hear me okay? I apologize for that. Had some internet trouble. Jeff Hollinger with the Royal Bank of Canada out of Toronto, Canada. So hello, everyone. Our team at RBC, we have hired upwards of 2,500 students each year in work integrated learning opportunities. And our teams are scattered across Canada. We have teams as well in the United States and the United Kingdom, recruiting all over the world. So our work integrated learning programs have been fairly robust, and we hire into all areas of the bank, from client facing to technology roles to investment banking roles. And it's a very interesting time for us, certainly adapting to the COVID world that we're all living in. And we are right in the middle of our summer here in Canada, and have right now approximately 1,300 students working with us in various capacities.
Jeff, perhaps we could just explore that a little bit more. So what has changed now under COVID with that group of students?
Sure. So as we were, once we came around to March and we realized that COVID was going to have an impact here in Canada. So back in January, February, COVID had not really reached Canada, at least to a major degree at that point. By the middle of March, it became very clear that having students join us in our corporate offices, in our buildings, was going to be very difficult. And then it became clear that that wouldn't be possible. To moving approximately 1,100 students in Canada to working from an in-office corporate environment to now working from home. And we had about 6 weeks to make that work. So I was on a lot of these Zoom meetings and on a lot of phone calls to try and make that happen. We ended up ordering a bunch of Microsoft Surface tablets for our students. So rather than try and deploy out laptops and technology to them, we ordered new products and shipped them right to their homes. And within the first week, we had 95% of our students functional and up to speed. So I'd say the biggest change has been going from in office to working from home. And then also we developed a number of different programming measures to ensure that students still had a very meaningful experience with us, things that they might have been able to experience when they were here in the corporate office, but now they won't. So we've had to deliver most of our programming is new, and it's all being delivered virtually.
Thank you very much. We might move now to Rachel in Perth, Australia, to talk about how Fortescue Metals has been engaging in COVID with work integrated learning. Rachel.
So, thanks. So firstly, with the West Australian borders actually closed late March off memory, interstate borders closed, and the mining industry was granted a necessary workplace exemption. Now, just for those in the meeting, the West Australian mining industry is fly in, fly out mainly, not much residential. So we've got a lot of people getting on planes, flying up to a mine site and living in a camp for a certain amount of duration. And what the vacation students or undergraduates do is they actually get on those planes with all the workers and live in a mining camp. Because of the COVID ID and social distancing, we had to change our rosters, our fly in, fly out rosters for all the workers. So the professionals went from 8 days on, 6 days off to 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. So that had a material impact on how we managed our flights, our actual mine sites, and the mass of people moving back and forth with those roster changes. So the effect on the students on the ground meant we had to confirm if they were based in Western Australia or the East Coast. We have quite a few East Coast employees doing fly in, fly out, so they of course couldn't go back to their homes. We had to either set up working from home over in the East Coast, or actually find temporary accommodation and wait out and remain in WA. So that's the broader piece of Fortescue. With respect to the actual vacation students in WIL, it's affected us we run assessment centres face-to-face for our students to meet them. We also run the road shows. That has been delayed because of the coronavirus and the social distancing requirements at the universities. But it's worth noting, different to North America, our summer season is December. So that's a 3-month peak period when we get our vacation students through the business. So we're actually anticipating it will continue as normal. It's unfortunately probably going to be the biggest effect is us going to the other universities in the other states due to the travel restrictions still in place. So far it's been very positive, and we've adapted. We actually see an opportunity in the coronavirus days, which is actually we're advertising again for graduates because we're hoping to see what's still left in the market and try and give people another opportunity to come and join us. And we're converting existing WAL individuals onto the graduate program already. It's actually opening opportunities and actually accelerating some things.
Thank you, Rachel. That's a fabulous segue into the next question, which is around what the opportunities and benefits have emerged from this COVID era that you can see or will in your organisation or your country. Perhaps we'll start with Ralph again. Ralph, can you see some opportunities and benefits emerging from what you've just experienced?
Oh, absolutely. And I think, first of all, I'd like to take a look backwards. And I think we learned something, at least in the United States, from the financial crash back of 2008, 2009. And at that time, about 9.5% of the employers in the US rescinded offers. And what employers found is it took a long time to rebuild their brand on campuses once they got back. And according to NACE, the National Association of Colleges and Employers in the US, as of June 29th of this year, only 7.5% of employers had revoked those full-time offers. So I think that's a positive. I think we're all going to start exploring a little bit more how to strengthen our employer brand in this remote hiring environment, particularly our virtual footprint. I think we're going to have to be more cognizant of our customers and be more customer-concentric on individual campuses. We're going to have to change this virtual world and what it's going to do with diversity and inclusion. In fact, many are saying that this virtual recruiting may actually benefit employers' diversity and inclusion efforts. And, you know, I think the big question that a lot of us are wrestling with, in fact, I was on a Zoom call from 6:30 this afternoon till this morning till 4:30 this afternoon with our recruiting managers. We've got another all-day session tomorrow, and it's just about what have we learned, how are we moving forward. But one of the big questions we're wrestling with is how do we connect with and authentically engage students on campus in this virtual world? And there's a lot of experimenting going on around that. So we're going to continue to work on that.
Thanks, Ralph. Lynn, some opportunities and some benefits that you can see coming out of this era from your organisation's perspective?
Things definitely COVID-19 that teach us lessons that nothing is impossible. I mean, we never imagined that one day everyone would be locked down at their homes. There's no interaction face to face. You don't have to go to work and see your colleague, but really face to face, and everything's go online. And it's up to you. Sometimes you can give the excuse of, you know, my internet is not working, so that you don't have to join Teams. But that's a joke. Put a joke aside. But we could see that, you know, giving this, the benefit would be, you know, everything could go online. We can definitely do activities, employer brandings. We have interactions with institutional and other organizations and other partners virtually, and we could still continue to strengthen that. And for Total Vietnam, we are still recruiting. Our YGS, or the Management Training Program, are still open for graduate students. We're still recruiting interns, and of course, the portfolio or the characteristic of students that we are looking for is, of course, not just that they are having the prerequisite of the normal GPA or the right relevant degree, but also what we're looking for is really having that kind of resilient, agile learnings, able to really adapt quickly. They are able to also technology savvy. They are aware of how to use all the Teams and Zooms. They are disciplined, so etc. And we see that more and more coming into our recruitment. That's what we are looking for in the potential employees for Total.
Thank you, Lynn. We might go to you, Jeff, in Canada. What do you see as the opportunities and benefits from the COVID era around work integrated learning?
Sure. One thing we've really noticed is the opportunity to evaluate talent that perhaps otherwise we might not have been able to. So as we all know, Canada is a massive country from a geographical perspective. So a lot of our corporate roles, in fact, I would say 95% of our corporate roles have been located in Toronto. So physically you needed to be in Toronto, but now we've been able to evaluate students in Vancouver and Calgary and Montreal and parts of Quebec and Atlantic Canada. So parts of the country where ordinarily students would have to make the choice between moving to Toronto in order to accept that role, now they don't have to. Because it really doesn't matter where in Canada you are now, you can still fulfill that role. So it's been able to give us a better perspective or allowed us to open up opportunities to students that we otherwise might not have been able to recruit. We've already made the decision that for the fall semester, the fall term from September to December this year, we are doing that virtually as well. So the students that we are recruiting right now, we are seeing an increase in applications coming from all parts of the country. Typically, that was usually very Toronto-centric and Southern Ontario-centric. So we had a very local catchment area, and now we have a national one. So I think that is one opportunity that we're seeing. The other is really enhancing the skills of people who are internal to RBC. We are one of the largest employers in Canada in the private sector, and our managers have been used to working with, and now we are putting their virtual management skills to the test. So this has also opened up the opportunity to allow them to evaluate talent from a distance, whereas previously they would have done that in person. So we are seeing a number of opportunities arise in this. And we're seeing opportunities for students too. They're going to be developing skills that they otherwise may not have been able to develop had we done this in person, from technology, from streamlined communication, from being more concise with people and more direct. It's been a little bit forced on us, but everybody, I feel, has adapted very, very well.
Thank you, Jeff. We might go to you, Rachel, to talk about the opportunities and benefits that you've seen from your perspective.
First, I'd like to thank all the other commentators. Because of our seasonal cycle of the workplace integrated learning process, I'm actually making some notes about what you've learned. I agree with the others. The normalisation of technology and the virtual meetings has the opportunity to transform and improve the way we do our current recruitment process, which is the face-to-face roadshows, the face-to-face assessment centres. This is actually going to open us up to the interstate universities and other opportunities, other areas, and become less West Australian centric, which is, I think, a massive opportunity because we actually have a shortfall of mining related professionals in Australia. Also, what else I'm seeing is as the economy is being affected by the coronavirus, we're actually starting to get some different people interested in working for us, different students. I mean, it's unfortunate, but I'm actually getting people with actuarial backgrounds, more finance backgrounds, who would traditionally go to the financial services industry. But because the mining sector, particularly gold and iron ore, is doing so well, we're now looking like we're now a more favourable employer, which is bringing us more diversity and a different skill set, which we've traditionally struggled to attract. So that's another big opportunity I see for us.
Okay, well, Rachel, I think there's some people from Singapore on the line today. You may be contacted by people from outside Australia if you. All right, so I think this is our last question before we then open up to Q&A. You may have touched on this already, but how do you see the world of work evolving and the role of work integrated learning or cooperative education moving forward for your company, for your region, for your country? Ralph.
Well, I think we need to look at several things. What this coronavirus is and how it's moving. You know, we're hearing more about airborne transmission now as opposed to the droplets. And so what does that mean? What are the politics behind some of those decisions? So I think those are going to impact some of us. And then there are some of our favorite things. So sports are a big deal in the United States. And, you know, one recent statistic I came across was that 72% of Americans said they would not attend a sporting event without a coronavirus vaccine. And I think that has some similar implications for us on campuses. Most of the employers say they're going to reduce on-campus presence come this fall, and we're certainly one of those. There's a Simplicity survey that was done just recently that 85% of employers plan to use either a hybrid or a total virtual recruiting for this fall. And I think that virtual recruiting might take that concept of recruiting only at some individual core schools to level that playing field. Jeff sort of mentioned that from some of the outlying areas in Canada, and we're seeing the same here. We also may see more collaboration amongst universities on how they run their virtual career fairs, that they may do groupings by city or state or region, however, that'll make some differences. I think it's a time that we've seen we need to over communicate with our teammates, with our university career centers, and with students. Communication is so important. And I think we also have to stop saying, well, when things get back to normal, because I don't think recruiting's ever going to go back to how it was just as recently as February. And so we're going to develop a new normal, and it'll be different, but actually I have confidence it's going to be better. And I don't think there are probably any of us that want to do 100% virtual recruiting. And one of the things that you know, we can't forget in this high-tech age, we still need to remember the importance of high touch. We still need to have the relationships. We still need to have the face-to-face to what degree we can. And I think lastly, one of the things to remember is that we've discovered how fragile our civilization is. And I think we need to be thankful every day for our own health, our security, our loved ones, and our colleagues.
Thank you, Ralph. Lynn, how do you see the world of work evolving and Will's place in it?
I definitely believe that it's not going to be back to normal again. And as I mentioned, even though Vietnam is nearly COVID-19 free, we're still practicing some of the, let's say, social distancing within Total. And moving forward, I don't think that the 100% of the manpower would be really present in the office anymore. They definitely there are more people who felt that, you know, telework now is the way to go. They are more flexible, they are more comfortable in they cope with the new normal in a way. It was quite struggling at first when people start to only work at home, there's no interruptions, but now people are okay. So some of our employees even say that they are even better. They feel better that to control the time and to control the work at home. So with having said that, which means that for new employees joining the organizations, they're not always the mental or the body not always going to be at work. So they have to really look into available resources, training, e-learnings, virtual tools, digital tools and stuff to really look out for informations and continue to develop themselves. And we are, when we're actually looking for hirings of the potential employees or graduates, we're looking for people who are able to tap on these resources and able to learn quickly and quite taking the initiative to develop themselves.
Thank you. Thank you, Lynn. We'll move to you, Jeff.
We've been hearing a lot about the term new normal, and I'm not sure we've arrived at that new normal yet. I think the term we've been the term we've been rolling with at RBC is the now normal, and continuously adapting to the now normal that we have. So, you know, I think Ralph alluded to this, but there's a desire here in Canada to return to the way it was, and to try and get back to the way it was in February. We have had significant impact from COVID-19. I am not sure that we will ever see the days where it is like it was back in February, but I have to say I'm very impressed with our education partners here in Canada. I'm impressed with my colleagues here at the Royal Bank of Canada, but most of all, I'm impressed with the students and new graduates that we've been working with, who have been perhaps adapted to this much easier in some cases than we have. They're used to working with these technologies, and there's an expectation that employers and educators will be savvy with it and will be able to adapt to them. So, you know, we've had to get creative. We're delivering informative sessions. We're delivering different touch points virtually now, and we're trying to make them a little bit more creative and a little bit more interactive so that they're unique and they're memorable for students. But, you know, where are we ultimately going to go? I don't know that any of us really know the answer to that. There is still a lot of uncertainty about how the virus will continue to unfold, but we know that our now normal today may be very different from our now normal a month from now and 2 months from now and throughout the rest of the year. So we're very conscious of not trying to settle into our new normal, because I don't think we've actually arrived at that yet. We've got more time to continue to adapt through it. The good news is we know it's here. Back in February and March, when this started to take hold in Canada, we had to adapt to it partway through. Now we can plan for this, and we have that as part of our calculus in terms of how we're moving forward. So I see opportunity with that. I see opportunity to be creative, to be accommodating, to be understanding. For many people, working from a remote environment is very new. It's something they've not experienced before, and having open communication, not only about the work that you're doing, but how you're doing it and the comfort level with which you're doing it. This is our now normal, and that will continue to evolve over the coming months, I'm sure.
Thanks, Jeff. And final comments from you, Rachel, before we hand over to Nora to do some Q&A.
With respect to the mining industry, the touch time and the actual work integrated learning at the actual operation, I believe, is critical. It's so important to see what happens in reality as opposed to the classroom. That's one of the joys of mining. But with the advance of technology, automation, artificial intelligence, but also this, as you said, the virtual meetings, Zoom, everything about it. It's challenging the way we structure our work and the way we develop our integrated learning in the workplace for the vacation students. So I actually think the students are probably better than the more mature of us, to be honest. I know they're certainly better than me. I'm quite traditional in that respect. I think you need to actually have boots on the ground, to use the mining phrase. But this is going to challenge the way we do things, the way we structure our operations, the way we structure our mine, and what people we need to bring into the business. So I don't know what the answer is yet, to be honest, but I think it's going to be very interesting.
Well, on that note, I'm going to hand over to Nora. I've seen some questions pop up in the chat, and we'll get Nora to now manage the quick Q&A.
Thanks very much, Judy, and thank you to all the panelists for your wonderful insights. There are 4 questions that have been coming up. The first one that came in and has had quite a bit of interest is the question of e-portfolios, and whether or not panelists, you value them in the first place, and given this current situation with more remote working, whether you would value them even more, or any comments on e-portfolios. Who would like to answer that? Anyone?
Sure, I can take that. We always welcome any information that a candidate would like to provide to us. In terms of what might be in an e-portfolio, would typically be the resume, a cover letter, perhaps a transcript, and perhaps a little bit of a summary of some supplemental work. We might see that a bit in our technology space within the bank, for example, where a student would showcase some of the work that they've done. So we're very welcoming to that. We are doing a little bit of Zoom and a little bit of WebEx to connect with students, but mostly it's by phone and by email. So a lot of those supplemental documents might be sent via email, and then we're having phone discussions with candidates. So very welcoming of that information. I think it's, that is something I think that will continue to evolve as we get towards whatever the new normal will become, is that e-portfolios and that electronic submission of documents and work and different pieces that enhance a candidacy. There's going to be something new and creative that comes from that, and beyond just the normal, let's say, a resume or a LinkedIn page.
Okay, thanks very much, Jeff. Anyone else want to add to that, or shall I move to the next question? Okay, all right, good. The next question was, if panelists, if you could comment on if there's anything that you found that having students in a face-to-face situation brings to the workplace that's now missing. Is there anything that you're feeling that's missing because everything's online from your interactions with students?
I think I can answer that.
Lynn, thank you.
Definitely, the human touch would never be replaced to me. I mean, regardless of students or even professional, when we actually, as recruiter, when we see and interview people in person, definitely there are a lot more to offer. There are, of course, I mean, I personally recruited students from some institutions in Vietnam, and the level of trend, let's say the program or personal edge program is not the same level for university to university. There are some institutions who pay a lot of attention to that. So the students are really well prepared. They know how to really taking the opportunity online to show the skill and to really impress the recruiter. But there aren't in a lot of other students who not really familiar with this online interviewing. So what I'm saying is also that, it is, there are the opportunity to also really prepare yourself with this virtual world. So that you have 1 hour to impress. So there are not a lot of body language you could show because you only see the face, the head of the other persons on the screen. But definitely a smile or other gesture would really be helpful, so that we know that you are interactive, you are engaging to this online world. Yeah.
Okay, so thanks, Lynn, answering that from the perspective of the recruitment and the interviewing process. Any other comments about what's lost without having a face-to-face engagement with students? Anyone else want to jump in on that?
Well, I think an interesting twist that we've seen is that, when students come to information sessions face-to-face on campus, they will listen to, our recruiters maybe talk for an hour or however long that may be, and then they'll ask some questions and they'll leave. And they'll be polite. Well, in a virtual setting, the student says, well, this isn't very interesting, or he or she's going on too long. I don't want to listen to any more of this. All they have to do is click on leave and they're gone. So I think it behooves us to be better in our PowerPoints, in our presentations, that they're lively, that they're interactive, and that everybody's really enjoying that, as opposed to sitting through something that the students don't really enjoy.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'll go on to the third question here. This is a question really, Ralph, you had made a comment about how you felt that this virtual environment could benefit diversity and inclusion efforts. So the question is asking you to expand upon that, how you think that is the case.
Well, I'm just starting to hear that from some of my colleagues here in the States, and that they will maybe go to some select core schools, and they will always get some of the top students on that campus, but maybe not expand to all of the kinds of students that they would like. But when it's opened up to more virtual, whether it's going through a a LinkedIn. It's going through a Handshake in the States here, a Simplicity, a ZipRecruiter. There are all kinds of avenues that students have availability of and that employers are utilizing more now than they have in the past. So I just think it opens up some doors for some avenues that students really haven't had access to some of the employers that they'd like to.
Okay, great. Any of the other employers want to speak about the implications for diversity and inclusion?
Yes, I would say here in Canada, it's opened up, I would say, the type of schools and the volume of schools that we would partner with. We've seen a little bit too in increased applications from our Indigenous community, and that is a group of students that at times have been reluctant to travel to Toronto, for example. They have shown an affinity to stay close to home and close to their home communities. Now they can perform those roles from there. So without having to come to Toronto. So we've seen a little bit of an uptick, I would say, in our Indigenous application rates. But we've also seen an uptick, I think, in the diversity of school that we recruit from. We don't really have a core or target group of schools at the Royal Bank of Canada. We have some that we hire more than others from. However, schools that may be a little bit more remote or further away from Toronto, for example, we've started to see some increases from those schools as well, and some increased hiring rates. So we are seeing a higher number of students come from schools that perhaps have not been in our top 10 or 15 schools in the past.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. The next question is actually for you, Jeff, but I'm sure that every one of the panelists can answer it. The question is, are students invited to get involved in shaping the new normal in the workplace?
We talked about this today at the Royal Bank. Yes, we've solicited their feedback many times because they're the ones who are experiencing this as the candidate and as the new employee at RBC, and they've been able to offer their thoughts and their suggestions in terms of their preferred method of connecting and communicating. And there's been, it was asked earlier, what is missed, or what parts do we not have now that we're in person? And I think one of the things we heard is we are missing the ability to just walk past somebody in the hallway and have that casual conversation, or go and grab a coffee with somebody where you would have been able to do that in person. So it's really put an emphasis on our investment in virtual technologies to be able to just still deliver that experience where a student can book somebody for a 15-minute chat and just have a, hi, how are you? Tell me about your department. I'm interested in this part of the bank and would like to learn a little more. So we're hearing very definitively from our students that they want the ability to continue to have those casual or those one-off conversations that ordinarily might occur in person when you see somebody, and now we've had to move that virtual.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any of the other panelists want to jump in on that question before I move on? Okay, so here's a question around tips or tricks on how to successfully onboard or train new individuals to your company virtually. Who would like to answer that one?
I can start, Nora, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
I answer this as a large employer. The Royal Bank of Canada is one of the largest private sector employers in the country. So we do have the resources to be able to do things like taking a Microsoft Surface device and mailing that out to our students. One of the things that we were very concerned about was accepting back devices from our winter students and then repurposing them for our summer students. A, we didn't have physical locations for them to bring that back to, and B, more importantly, we didn't want the potential for infection to occur from those devices by passing them to another student. So I would say in as many cases as possible, the technology that you're using to enable your students to do their jobs, that needs to be a seamless process, and if possible, new devices, and then a process to collect those devices back and repurpose them out after a cleaning. So that's what we're working on right now. Our summer students are going to end by the end of August. We are setting up regional depots to drop off those devices and have them cleaned and then mailed back out and repurposed to our students that will join us in September for the fall term to ensure they all have the same technology and that technology is free of any potential harm from the virus.
Great. Thank you. Any other comments? Rachel, did you want to have a comment?
Yes, we're a smaller student employer than the bank in Canada, obviously. We take about 50 a year, but with the nature of the fly in, fly out and the remote locations, we have to make sure we actually better understand what's going on in the student's life in the background. It's daunting enough going to your first, shall we say, professional vacation role, you know, doing the workplace integrated learning, just almost the first step on your career. So we assign them normally mentors on the operation to make sure they've got someone there for the face-to-face. But we also need to be more diligent in the background of understanding what each student's personal situation is and how we can support them. Do they, you know, can they work in the office? Are they comfortable with that? Does the roster, which we've changed to, does that align with their family row? Are they in a position they can relocate? Can we set them up at home? The network connection, along with the, as you said, that FaceTime. How are they tracking? How are they going well? I think it takes a lot more time than I first realised. And when, as you said, when you lose the ability to see them face to face personally, the point on the facial expressions is critical, but also you have to be a bit more flexible.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question. Are employers, any of you, using LinkedIn to source potential graduates? And if so, should universities be making LinkedIn profiles a higher priority for employers?
I would answer it first. I mean, being a recruiter myself, I definitely say it's a big yes. In fact, we move. I mean, we are quite active on LinkedIn to source for a graduate and even O-level professionals and graduate, fresh and entry level. So I would say yes. Update the students' LinkedIn and we move into one professional portal. I would say it would be really helpful. And I see that there are more and more students who are quite aware of it. So traditionally, they only go into the company website or some of the popular job portals to look for job. But now, with what we have seen, LinkedIn is definitely a very popular channel or platforms in Vietnam. And I see that it is quite on the rise and on demand. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Ralph, did you want to add something?
I certainly second that, Lynn. What I've seen on a number of campuses in the US is that, you know, on a particular day or an afternoon or so, they're going to have a room set up with a camera and some staff member trained to take relatively professional photographs of the students that they can use for LinkedIn profiles. And that's really good as opposed to just picking up some photograph that we know isn't very professional. So that's one way I've seen campuses using it.
Great. Okay, do we have time for one more question, Judy?
I think so. One last question and then we'll wrap it up.
All right. Final question for the employers. Has there been a need to change the type of WIL project provided to students in the virtual environment, or are they performing similar duties as they would have previously? Any comments on that?
Sure, I would. I'd like to start. In most cases, yes, they are working on the project that they were hired for, but an example where that is not occurring, where we've had to shift within the banking industry, is as a result of COVID, we've had to temporarily close 40% of our retail locations in Canada. People who ordinarily might have gone to a physical bank location to perform transactional or strategic services are now turning to online and virtual formats to do that. So they're using telephone banking, they're using online banking, which means we've had to take a number of students that we had intended on going into a particular branch in a neighborhood, whether that's here in Toronto or other parts of the country, and transition them and technologically enable them to be able to deliver banking services now from a virtual perspective. So they're handling telephone banking inquiries now. They're handling online banking inquiries, whereas we had hired them to be client-facing, face-to-face in a branch. So we've had to adapt that. There are other areas as well where we've had to adjust some of the work, perhaps that a student was doing, but by and large, we've been able to honor the mandates that we had hired students for.
Great, thank you, Jeff. Any comments from the other employers about any modifications to the work being given to students?
We've been training our students for decades to work face-to-face selling educational products. And so all of the training and everything they were used to was face-to-face. And then they felt confident about going out after graduation and applying for jobs that are face-to-face sales. But lots of sales involve virtual selling. And we hadn't really trained our students very much on that, but now we are. And so instead of just leaving university with the face-to-face training, now they've got face-to-face as well as the virtual. So what we're seeing is that they're even more employable because of some of these changes that we've had to make that we didn't know we were having to make.
That's great. Well, thank you very much, everyone. I think that's all the time that we have for questions, and I'll hand it back to you, Judy, for closing comments.
Well, thank you, Nora, and thank you to our employers. I think we'll all agree that's been an incredibly rich conversation about incredible changes that are occurring, not only from our perspective in institutions, but employers. And some of the things that I'm taking away is just the incredible flexibility and creativity that employers are showing and the care employers are showing. And some of the takeouts are, I love Lynn, nothing is impossible anymore. And the now normal, I think you said, Jeff, it's really heartening to see that the geographic barriers are down and things that where this could open up access and equity to a whole range of students. So it's very interesting to see and to look at this as it evolves, and the fact that perhaps there is no going back. Perhaps we're moving into a new environment, a new normal. So I want to thank the employers again. We really appreciate it. I want to thank the participants that have joined us today. I just wanted to tell you that we have people from Singapore, Thailand, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, South Africa, Vietnam, USA, and Jamaica all joining us today. So we'll be sending you a survey to get your feedback on this webinar, and also some ideas for WACE as we evolve our services moving forward. The recording of this will be available on the WACE website next week. The new website has got lots of information, including options for membership and other services and information, and there'll be a newsletter coming out. If anyone's got any news or items or resources they'd like to share, you've all now got my email. Please send it to me and we'll include it in the newsletter. On the 28th and 29th of July and the 30th, we'll be running more webinars on research approaches into work integrated learning. Everybody that's indicated they're happy to get WACE communications will get that information, or you can go to the WACE website next week where you will get that information. You can register. So this will be researchers talking about COVID-19 and work integrated learning and So on that note, I want to thank you all very, very much for joining us. It's been fabulous to see familiar faces, new faces, people from across the world joining us. There is an option B tonight. You'll probably all be asleep, but there's an option B for Europe, South Africa, and the other half of North America. We will be recording that, and you'll be able to see what's happening in the UK, South Africa, and again, the other side of Canada. They've got employers speaking tonight. So please dip back onto the WACE website, and thank you and goodbye. And if the panelists want to hold on, we might just have a quick after party, not really, a quick chat afterwards. So thank you very much for joining us. Good morning from Australia. Good evening to everybody that's about to go to sleep. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, so bye everyone.
I will stop recording now, Judy.
I think so, yes.